This episode of the Hunt Stealth podcast is brought to you by ReadyWise Outdoor. When you're chasing adventure, you need energy you can count on. ReadyWise Pro Meals are packed with over 30 grams of protein and 500 plus calories per serving to keep you energized no matter the terrain. From the protein-packed breakfast skillet to the Thai coconut cashew curry, these lightweight, freeze-dried meals are ready in minutes. Made in the USA, ReadyWise is built for hunters and explorers just like you. Visit ReadyWiseOutdoor.com and use promo code RYAN20 to save 20% off your next order. Elevate your next adventure with blue coolers from Cata Sports, designed to keep your food and drinks ice cold no matter where the journey takes you. With top-tier insulation, rugged durability, and built-in wheels for easy transport, these coolers are the ultimate sidekick for all of your outdoor adventures. Best of all, they deliver unbeatable performance at a price that won't break the bank. Head on over to catasports.com and use promo code RYAN10 to save 10% off your order.
You're listening to the Hunt Stealth Podcast with Ryan Uffens, the podcast where we dive headfirst into the wild. Whether you're an aspiring hunter or an adventurer seeking the untamed, together we'll explore the strategies and stories that lead to success in the great outdoors.
Welcome to another episode of the Hunt Stealth Podcast. Today, it's going to be a little bit different podcast for us. We're sitting down with the founders of Hunt Stealth. We've got Jaxon Uffens, Dustin Green, and Quinn Green. For those of you that, you probably heard me talk about Jaxon on here multiple times. He is my son, handsome devil, looks just like his old man. And then we got Quinn Green, who was a neighbor of mine for many years, and we've become close, and we discovered each other had a love for hunting, and we become close hunting buddies. And then Dustin, who is Quinn's cousin, is on here as well. Fellas, thanks for joining us today.
No problem.
Yeah, absolutely. So
happy to be here.
Well, to kick us off, maybe we share with the folks kind of how this whole Hunt Stealth thing came to be. Jaxon, you want to kick things off for us?
Yeah, so it was earlier last year. We had started our marketing agency, planning on going helping businesses grow through traditional and organic marketing. And we had just been through the ringer there. Just no after no after no. And eventually, I'm like, or are we working so hard to grow other people's businesses when we could put that time and effort into one of our own and do something that we enjoy? And so we had just got back from meeting with a client. They had really liked the idea of what we presented to them, but they weren't ready to pull the trigger. And that's when I was like, okay, that's it. Like, let's do our own thing. So let's do what we love. Like, let's do a hunting brand, hunting podcast, figure something out that we can just do for fun and build. And also kind of use it as a case study for other clients to be like, this is what we did from literally nothing, and this is how we can help you. But now I don't know if we want to do that anymore. We just want to grow this.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we get back from that, start talking about things we could do. We're like, let's do a lifestyle brand and try to incorporate other things that we can do, because we are not professionals. Like,
In the hunting world.
Yes.
In the hunting world.
Yes, we have not killed any big game animals. We really want to, and we love to. And so we're like, this is going to be, what's the word? A relatable hunting lifestyle brand to other people that want to get into it but haven't yet. And so then we start calling you guys, because you guys actually have experience and know a lot more about what you're doing.
Jax, let me slow you down there a little bit. You weren't just like, let's start it. You're like, I want to start a hunting lifestyle brand, and I know what I want to call it. I'm like, okay, well, let's do it. What do you want to call it? He's like, Stealth. And so that's like, it wasn't so much on a whim. He had clearly been thinking about it. So like, I give Jaxon like full credit for the idea on this. And that's after he said that, I'm like, I like that. We started doing some research, and obviously, in the year 2024, getting stealth.com was not an option, but it was the hunting, and we thought Hunt Stealth works. But from there, we started going like, hey, how can we reverse engineer this thing? As Jaxon mentioned, we're not professionals. We don't have a whole bunch of video that can show how great we are and all the things that we've done. And so what we wanted to do is be able to try and like, hey, how can we incorporate other hunters and let them share their stories and success and can help people like us that are new to hunting and have success. So yeah, full credit to Jaxon. And like I said, when we had that conversation, I got geeked out. Like I immediately called Dustin. Quinn didn't answer because his job's like super rigorous and demanding. And I was like, I gotta talk to somebody else about this. I'm like, we want to do this and we're going to get going. So,
you know what? I remember that phone call because you know what? I just got through listening to another podcast and I think you texted me and then called me and I got on the phone and me and Quinn, we built a network in the hunting community and whatnot. And the weird part is I was having all these thoughts right before you called me about like, how can I figure out how to do something for a living in hunting? I was like, I might just be an outfitter or, you know, whatever I was going to do. I wanted to do something in it. And so when you called me, I got all kinds of fired up, to be honest with you. And then like the name just rung a bell. I was just like, holy cow, like it. And even like the logo when we went to lunch and I the hats and all that kind of stuff, it just really stuck with me. And then to be honest with you too, what really put me over the edge was I listened to a lot of different hunting podcasts out there. The way that you guys envisioned it was just going to be different. You guys said you were kind of newer. I mean, you had some experience and whatnot. You said me and Quinn are experienced. We are to an extent, but we're not on the level of like some of the podcasters out there. So anyways, the vision that you put into place was just awesome. So,
yeah. Well, kudos to Jaxon for doing something that I should have done like a long time ago. But, you know, you kind of look at things as opportunities. I'm like, I wish I'd have been hunting my entire life. But we've got this business that we're building now that probably wouldn't be built if I had been hunting my entire life.
absolutely.
And so things come to us in different stages. And so I try and look for the good in things. That hasn't always been the case. I think I've mentioned in one of the other podcasts. Matter of fact, we're dropping the podcast with Nick
Awesome.
tomorrow, but Dr. Outdoors. But so it will have already been dropped. But we got talking in there, and I haven't always been like optimistic person, and it still is something I'm definitely working at. But I remember Jaxon was probably like 5, and we're sitting at one of I think it was like the first Avengers show, and like Bruce Banner drives up, and he's on his little moped thing, and he pulls up to Captain America, and he's like, he goes, "You want to know my secret, Captain?" And he's like, yeah. He's like, I'm always angry. And then he immediately turns and like into the Hulk and like smashes that alien head. And Jaxon like leans over to me and he's like, Dad, that's you. And I was like, I laughed at the time, but looking back, I'm like, that's sad that like my 5-year-old kid like thinks like, oh, that's my dad. He's constantly mad at the world. But anyway, like I said, new chapter, turning over a new leaf. You know, there's a lot of things that just happen, and you can look at them as negatives or you can look at them as positives. And here we are, 4 guys that love hunting and the outdoors and being able to, I mean, we really are like a family. I mean, Jaxon and I literally are family. You guys are literally family, and we've just been connected for so long. It's kind of fun. So anyway.
Yeah, the crazy part, Ryan, is I met you while you were moving Quinn out of his house, and I just remember we connected really well back then.
Yeah.
And just stayed in contact. So it's just wild how it kind of comes around.
Yeah, I don't bring that up because I'm still pissed that Quinn moved out. But
Yeah.
Hey, you know,
I don't know why you want to put your family into a bigger home.
we were just on top of each other with that house, so it was inevitable that we were going to move there in any minute there. So, but I do remember your phone call to me as well. I was actually at my son's t-ball game, and you called me, and you said that I just got off the phone with Dustin. And I was like, I don't remember you meeting Dustin until it kind of clicked, and you told me, hey, we met when we moved you out. Do you remember that? I was like, oh, that is right. So, yeah.
Well,
After that, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, in all honesty, I think we connected on Instagram or something, and then me and Ryan were always going back and forth because we shared same political views and all that kind of stuff. So it just kind of grew from there.
White dudes for Kamala, right? I'm just kidding.
Yeah, attaboy.
Anyway,
I mean that phone call.
Yeah.
So when you started talking about, hey, I've been working in iHeart, I've seen what, you know, the model that this can do for any brand, and that just got fired up because we didn't know what we were doing. We were building the Green Machine or the Green Scene. We transferred the name there, but we got a pretty good following, but we never got it anywhere. I think we sold one shirt, and that was to my sister. So it was a tough deal.
Yeah.
We also gave one away just for trying to get some engagement with our Instagram page, but that was really
Yeah.
we didn't have a lot of success at all.
I mean, and we had like a sponsorship here and there. I mean, I remember we were working with 5 Hour Energy at one point and that kind of stuff. But the problem was too, was like me and Quinn, we were like, right in the middle, like the busiest time in our life, both had 3 kids, prime time in our career, that kind of stuff. We barely had enough time to hunt, let alone like work on something like that. So we're finally at that point. So you guys called us perfect time. So.
Well, and I think
Absolutely.
to your point, what we're trying to build here, and I can't remember, but there was a sociologist, his last name I think was Bauman, and he had said communities aren't created. You either have one or you don't. And I think that's one of the unique things is like, I mean, this is a hunting community and that already exists. I think it's fun. And I love like you said, like the range of people that we have on, being able to learn from all of them and just get insight. And it gets me excited. Like every single episode that I've recorded, I've sat down with somebody, I'm taking like notes and creating friendships. And it's like, I'm still talking with like all of these guys. Like we're messaging constantly, like back and forth. And it's like, we're getting invited to go do to go shed hunting, right? We're getting invited to go do mountain lion hunt. We're getting invited to go up and do an antelope hunt in Wyoming. I mean, there's just so many things that are happening from this, and just the opportunities that are being created are kind of fun. And it's just like average guys. It's like average guys that just know they're like, if you ever want to put in and come in up here, like I'll take you out and help you out. And it's fun to see that part of the hunting community where people are just willing to like share their knowledge. And not everybody is. I mean, they're not giving us away the honey holes right now. Do you know what I mean? But they're sharing like the knowledge that they've learned. And I think that's one of the things that's super helpful is like every single episode, somebody can walk away with something that they can put like another arrow in the quiver and make them a better hunter.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What I love about it is everybody that you've talked to is on a different level, and there's always something that you can learn from everybody that you've talked to. So
Yes.
absolutely love it. And you know what? I'm glad, I don't want anybody to give away a honey hole, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Um, Believe me and Quinn have been hunting for a little bit over a decade and whatnot. And there's been years where it's been terrible, but the learning experience, I wouldn't take it away. Getting it day in and day out in the grind, that's half the battle right there. And that's half the fun is finding your own honey hole and figuring it out on your own. So
Yeah, Dustin, there's some spots in Uenos that we probably will never go again because of deadfall, the little whippers or the quakies. So we've grown accustomed to know some of the spots in the South Slope drainage.
yeah, sometimes you got to get your ass kicked for many years before you figure it out.
Yeah.
So,
Well, good.
And
Well,
Ryan,
we've been getting, go ahead.
I was just going to say to your point too that the vast majority of the hunting community are willing to help. I mean, you'll run into a bad egg every now and then, but we've had our back and forth with hunters if we get to the same trailhead and we have to kind of talk to them, say, hey, where are you going to go? Or are you going to leave? Things like that, just kind of awkward situations with other hunters. But the vast majority are there to help and are willing to share the mountain with you. So
yeah, we've had some bad experiences and some really good experiences with that. Most of the time it's good, but when you run into people like that, so.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, a lot of time what I've discovered is a lot of people, I mean, it's not easy to get time off to go and hunt. And so I think some of those where you might butt heads with somebody, you got somebody who might only have like 2 or 3 days. And so like they had a plan in their mind and they don't want to budge because they feel like it's going to throw their whole plan. But as we've discovered, as we've hunted, is you've got to be nimble and be willing to adjust because you might have a plan that you go in with that doesn't mean that that's how it's going to be executed. You got to be nimble. You've got to be flexible. You've got to be willing to just like adjust on the fly in order to have a successful hunt. And again, the definition of a successful hunt could be harvesting an animal, or it could just be some great knowledge that you're taking away. Like you said, Quinn, it might be like the knowledge of the terrain. Like here's places to avoid where you could get yourself into some trouble. And then alternatively, you find some places it's like, hey, it's like you said, Dustin, like you're going to have to like get your ass kicked a little bit. But by going through that, you're going to get into some areas that most hunters don't want to put the effort into getting into, because like you get back there and you get an animal, then you got to get it out that way too.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't take all the experience that we have and getting our butt kicked and whatnot. I'm so glad we went through that. I feel like that's just kind of calloused our mind a lot with hunting and whatnot. And so it's made us successful. And another thing is like, I try to have the mindset of like, it's not over until the fat lady sings, even no matter who comes in there, if it's crowded and that kind of stuff. We shot a 6-point bull. Remember with Jake Quinn, when we went up there, Jake sat on that ridge where we've been hunting for 30 years, the Green family and whatnot. We had a group of hunters that came went up into the area, usually we call elk in there. We sat there and, usually we're done by like 9 a.m., but, it was like 10:30 in the morning. All of a sudden we heard this crashing and came up, and our cousin Jake shot this 6-point bull 20 yards away when it came. And we just had hunters like go in there. So you just never know. You just got to always be aware. It usually happens when you least expect it. The funny part about that hill right there and that mountain is I've shot an elk there, Quinn shot an elk there, and then our cousin Jake that I was talking about that shot that 6-point has shot an elk all on that same mountain. And our uncle shot one there, multiple times, but even 30 years ago. So
yeah, I was going to say other generations have shot a bunch of elk there as well. So it's definitely a good spot. But I'd like to talk about that story too. Like when we went up there, I think it was 2016 year.
The first time we went up there?
Yeah, the first time we went out there, I think it was 2016. You and I went to that rock and just, we're glassing both hillsides because it's like it's kind of a razorback ridge that we just sit on. We have good vision. It's a really good rifle spot, not a very good archery because you have a large range of vision there. And, it was getting close to where,
it was our last day.
It was the last day because opening day is always a Saturday, and we were going to leave, I think, a Wednesday morning that year, maybe Tuesday. Yeah. And we went up there, and it was getting about that time to where we're like losing hope.
Hey, Quinn, can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
How many animals did you have a chance on the rest of that trip that you guys were out there?
That was the first encounter.
So you've been out there for what, like a week then?
Yeah, well, about three or 4 days.
3-4 days.
Yeah.
You guys are out there just grinding away and like nothing.
And I can tell you what happened the day before too. That craziest story ever happened to me the day before. But I'll let Quinn finish on what happened. How we killed our elk.
Sorry.
Yeah, so it was getting about the time to where we were losing hope for that morning. I think it was roughly 9:30, 10 o'clock, and that's usually when you want to kind of wrap up and leave. And, I was going back and forth on that ridge where you could see, roughly 30 to 40 yards away, and then move back to the lower ridge where the burnt log is. And I just saw 4 cows running up the hill right there, and I shot that lead cow, and Dustin was 20 yards below me at this little juniper bush, and I was just pointing. He was looking up at me and just like, "What the heck did you just shoot at?" And I was pointing
on the other side, and then
we were looking on the other side. He had no idea what direction I was shooting. Yeah. So I started pointing, freaking out, and he got to a place I don't think he could see him at where he was, so he had to kind of run a little bit and sprint, and then he gets to on one knee and shoots I think the 3rd or 4th calf or cow there. I think there was one little calf, and then I think you hit the 3rd cow there, and then that one came tumbling down as well. So we had our work cut out for that one, but that was a very fun experience.
Yeah, the cool part about that, what I liked about my shot there was I literally barely saw them as they were about to go over the ridge. I put my rifle up, got it in my scope, put my crosshairs on it really quick, bam, shot her on the run, and she just fell over flat like right there. So it was kind of a cool shot. It wasn't like she was just standing there. She was running.
So were you guys like
whatnot.
on opposite sides firing at each other?
No, it was across like the
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
It makes me think
just
of
look
like the nature walk. You ever seen that with Lenny Pepperbottom?
I haven't seen that one.
You'll have to look it up later. Anyway, if you know, you know.
Yeah.
No, Quinn, I almost didn't get out of bed that morning because I was so exhausted because we had hiked miles and miles and miles for like every single day for 5 days straight. And then the day before that, you remember when we went down, it's not, this isn't the canyon, what it's called, but we make up names for our own like camp of what the canyon is. We call it Big Canyon. And it's like an 8-mile trek down this canyon. And I dropped down in there the morning before, and I actually got attacked by a bear in there the morning before, and it startled me. And so I was not only exhausted, I was tired and like mentally fatigued. And
Just
so
shook all the way around.
Yep.
Yeah. Tell me about it. I think I actually went down that same canyon with you that morning. And just to give Ryan and Jackson perspective of how long it takes, we get dropped down into that canyon roughly 7 o'clock. We're not out until 1:30 in the afternoon. That's a long trek, and it does take a long time, 8-mile just down that one canyon there. But anyway, I was about, I don't know, 50 yards in front of you, Dustin, because we actually carry these, what we call Garmin GPS / walkie-talkies. What are they called? The Rhinos.
Yeah, we call them Rhino. Yeah, they are.
They're not the best for GPS and tracking, but we use those for communication going down any of the canyons there up in the Uintas. Just all our camp has one, and we just choose a channel, and that's how we communicate. But so I was about 50 yards in front of Dustin. I hear a gunshot. So I was thinking, okay, he just shot an elk or shot at an elk. So I looked at my GPS, see that he was roughly 50 yards away from me. I start walking to him, because I was getting excited. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to be packing out an elk now. I take 3 more steps. I look at the Garmin GPS one more time, and he's like 10 yards in front of me, and I can see him. And I was like, what the heck is going on here? And then he's like, dude, I just shot
Was
at
he
a bear.
running like this? Go, get away.
Yeah.
I actually shot twice.
I shot twice at a bear, just to get him away from us. And he was just sprinting. And the funny part about this, too, is his backpack, it was unzipped. So he just left a trail of evidence. Like, one of those, no crustable peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
Uncrustable.
Water bottle there. It was like, no, we're going to find where you shot at.
We would walk 20 yards up and we're like, oh, here's the granola bar.
Yep.
We couldn't find, it's so thick that you can't find exactly where you're at. And
there's his crackers. And he went through like the worst part of the mountain too. It was like, how'd you even do this? Are you an Olympic gymnast?
Yeah, I jumped over like these huge trees. Like it startled me. So what happened for me was I sat down to eat like a snack. I think it was actually peanuts. And I delayered because I started getting hot. And I remember shoving in my like some clothes in my pack, threw my pack on, grabbed my 7mm, and I started walking literally over this ridge. And I knew Jake and Quinn were down below me. And I think I actually heard a cow call. I think it was Jake that cow called. And then I heard like the loudest. I heard you talk in your podcast how like elk are like super loud. I mean, this was loud. And I was like, oh, sweet. I put my gun up, put my rifle in, put the bullet in. And I look up and I see a bear just full speed right at me.
It was a black bear, right?
It was a black bear. But I mean, like the speed, I didn't realize how fast they were. And anyways, I just remember thinking, okay, shoot above him and just scare him. Shoot above him and scare him. And so I shot above him. Boom. He just kept running, and he wasn't running straight at me.
He was like, miss, sucker.
Maneuvering like around trees and that kind of stuff. So I shot, And then like I just remember my gun would get jammed. And so I just remember, and like F words were going in my mind. I'm like, get this effing bullet in the chamber. Get this effing bullet in the chamber. And I just like and it went in, and I just remember thinking, thank God. Like, and then I remember he was 12 yards away from me full speed, and I put my gun up and just shot and let it rip. And then I remember he went that way, I went the other way, and then I don't remember anything after that until I got to Quinn.
That's funny.
Just wild.
Yeah.
Quinn, I don't know if you remember this, but I remember the first time I heard the remnants of this story, but it was, I don't know, a couple months ago when we had gone up in Farmington, and Jaxon and Dustin were walking down in front of us, and we had just finished for the day. And I'm walking, I'm like, oh, somebody dropped a granola bar. Do you remember that?
Right.
Oh yeah.
And he's like,
Yep.
oh, he's like, Dustin has a habit of that. I've got a funny story to tell you about that. So
I did tell her.
I got like a Cliff Notes version of your encounter, but do you remember that?
Yep, I do.
Yeah, so note to self, don't leave a trail of food from where you just ran away from a bear because he'll find you.
Hey, well, that trail of food actually helped us because we were able to locate his shells where he was shot, shooting at the bear. So we grabbed his shells so we could reload. It was
There
funny
you
though.
go.
Anyways, I mean, it didn't sound that bad, but I mean, at the time it startled when you have a bear like full speed at you, it startles you, especially when
Oh,
you
I bet.
think about it. It just happens. So, I mean, my shots were literally within second. I shot and it went 1,000, 2,000, boom. I had the next bullet in and I shot again. That's how fast it went. Quinn can confirm that. It was like boom, boom.
I guess that's one of the benefits of hunting with a rifle. See, I'm thinking like you were going to go like Revenant style, right? Like sit down, break out the old knife, and just like go to town on it.
Yeah, and look, I wouldn't have shot if it wasn't running, but it was running right at me. So I was like, I don't know what
Right.
to do. So I just reacted. So
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
that's smart. That's the
yeah.
scary thing about bow hunting is unless you have, and I didn't know this until this year or last year, but unless you have your concealed to carry permit in Utah and you're on a bow hunt, you can't have any other weapon with you. Like you can't carry a self-defense pistol in case something like that happens. So that's why you always need to have at least one or two other people that don't have a tag or aren't hunting that can carry a self-defense weapon for something like that.
Is
Yeah.
that the actual law?
That's what someone at Wild Arrow, our local bow shop, told me.
Local pro shop?
And so,
Okay.
well, don't quote me on that. We'll have to double check. But yeah, if you have your concealed, at least in the state of Utah, if you have your concealed to carry permit and you're on a bow hunt, you can carry a pistol with you. But if you don't, then you can't. But we'd have to double check that. That's just
I didn't know that. I mean, I had
my
my
understanding.
concealed, and carry a pistol because of that, but I didn't know that. That's
Yeah,
wild.
I
Yeah.
need to start carrying a pistol because I never do when I go archery hunting.
I mean, you had that
Yeah.
shooter pop right in front of you last
Yeah.
year.
I know.
Either that or just wear a bunch of Kevlar and a big Bowie knife.
Yeah, there you go.
That'll work.
Well, to complete that story though, I remember when we went to camp after that, and you went to go talk to your wife and tell her about that story. I just remember her first words, "Are you ever going to go hunting again?" And I was like, "That's a fair question."
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
obviously he did. So
The next
he's a
day,
trooper.
we killed our first elk on that same mountain. So
Yeah, that was the very next day is when we shot a cow right next to each other and just had our work cut out for us to where we had to pack those both out. So at least the packing out wasn't that bad. It was all downhill. So
yep. And then I mean that's where we typically go is up in that area too, and we can usually call bulls in up in there as well, which has been awesome.
So how many chances have you guys had with a bow versus a rifle on any of your hunts? Like how many times have you shot your bow at something versus your rifle?
So I started out rifle hunting. Let me just say this: I shot the first time I ever went hunting. I shot at two bulls and killed one. my first day. Like I don't know, call it beginner's luck. I'm like, oh, this is easy. I missed the big 6 point because it was too far away, but my friend was down closer, but I still shot at him. Me and my other buddy Chase. So I killed the bull my first day. Um, since then, I've had more opportunities with rifle, but that's because our family goes with rifle. I can't count how many opportunities with rifle I've had. But I mean, I've only killed a few elk since then. With archery, I've only drawn back, I think, 4 or 5 times, and just haven't been able to get a shot. They were either too far away or it was too thick, and they just didn't get in the right spot. So
Are you talking just elk?
we've been really close. What's that?
Are you talking just elk hunting? Because you shot a 4x4 last year, didn't you?
Oh, I'm just talking elk hunting. Yeah,
Okay.
I killed deer. Yeah, absolutely, I've killed bucks.
Jackson, did you mean just in general or just
Yeah,
elk?
no, just in general, because I know how extremely hard it is to take an animal with a bow. It's a completely different, honestly, a completely different hunting experience with the bow versus rifle. So I was just curious
Yeah, and I
how many
apologize.
chances you've
I have elk
had.
on my mind right now. Like you got me. Like, oh, you guys got
Well,
elk.
that's all that's on my mind. That's what I want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
and
to be honest with you, Jackson, I've actually had more success drawing back and shooting my bow. Now, again, it hasn't been all that successful. I hate to admit, but I've had more success drawing back and shooting an animal with my bow rather than shooting my rifle at an elk. Probably about maybe 2 or 3 more more than I did with the rifle there. So
yeah, and Quinn, uh, he always has cow elk like right in front of him. Like how you were sitting at this cow elk, like, and you could have just smoked it with a bow, but you're always waiting for the big bull to come out. I don't know how much, like for like 10 plus years, you're always like, yeah, I had this cow sitting right in front of me and I could have smoked it, but I'm waiting for the bull.
well, yeah, we went down this finger drainage. We call it 280, in our camp, and we got this elk to pipe off, and he was just screaming like crazy. I started hearing 3 or 4 other elk coming down at me, and I was hoping that the bull was with me because I think you were with them, and because I think it was up by you guys because you were higher up. But I was hearing 3 or 4 elk coming down to me just crashing because elk are loud, and they stopped roughly 40 yards away from me just across this little finger rich canyon.
And you knew there was
And
a bull.
it was
Yeah.
broadside. I could have shot. I had a tag that I could easily take a cow, but I was stupid and thought that the bull was going to come down with him and kind of follow him. So that's what I was waiting for.
Yeah.
But we were fired up. The bull was fired up and it was just screaming like crazy. And I just wanted to have something with antlers. So
Yeah.
It's interesting, like the habits and the patterns, how they can change. I mean, like for example, like when we were up there, Quinn, I can't remember if you were up there. Maybe I think it was Dustin. It was me, you, Jackson, and your brother.
Mm-hmm.
We saw that little forky, which was like 30 yards, came right up to us and broadside, and like you're drawn back on it, and I'm like sitting there. I'm like, is he gonna smoke it? And all of a sudden, if thing finally kind of like saw us and started and like kind of darted away from us for a little bit, and then like you let your arrow down, and you're like, man, I'm sorry I didn't shoot that thing. I'm like, dude, that's your tag. Like, if you want to let that boy grow a little bit, let him grow. But then we're like, hey, we're going to kind of circle around, and we were going to try and push him up to your brother, because I know your brother was has he gotten one up there before?
He hasn't. No. And what we were going to do is remember that big 4 point came over the top.
Right. Oh yeah.
We were going to,
Say that
you know
again.
what I'm talking about? Don't remember like a couple minutes later there was a big 4 point that went over the hill.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we were going to push that one up towards him
He started
because I
coming
think
down
he
with
was-
some does and was just like working across. We're just working across that slope, kind of heading down to like the northeast, and we're like, hey, let's go around and try and push him up. And we tried to get in position to push him up to where your brother and Jackson was, and he had other plans. He just kept going the exact direction he was going. He just like hightailed it. he took his ladies and was like, phew, gone. So yeah, like when it comes to just like they're wild animals and they're constantly, especially when where we were hunting here in Davis County and where you guys were, these animals are just under constant pressure. And so it's really hard to kind of get like a read on what they're going to do. Cause like you bump one of these animals. They could be a mile away from you in no time at all. And you'll never see them again for weeks or months, So it's interesting, like you said, Quinn, like you're sitting there trying to figure out like, hey, I'm going to wait for this big boy to come down. I saw that doe and never happens.
Yeah, I'm definitely kicking myself these days for that one because I definitely would have had meat in the freezer. It was an easy 40-yard shot, and obviously I practiced my bow a lot before that situation came up. So that would have been another pack out for us. But I chose to wait and see if that bull would come and follow because I've seen that before on YouTube videos as well. So
Yeah,
you just never know what's going to happen.
I think so. So here's like the thing that I learned from like one of the things I recall talking about with like Jay Scott. It's like before you go out, define what your definition of a successful hunt's going to be. So like if you have a tag and you can take like a doe or a spike or a bull, like if you're okay taking a doe, if the opportunity comes, take it. If you went out, and it sounds like you went out with the intent of getting a bull, and that's okay. So like the next time you go out, it's like, hey, I want meat in the fridge. And if a doe presents itself, like in the back of your mind, you're going to be like, hold on a second. I know what I want to do. I want to put some meat in the fridge. So whether it's take a doe or take a bull, I want meat. And if the opportunity presents itself, then it makes it easier to make that decision and just live with it. Yeah. But I guarantee you, had you probably shot that doe, that big bull would have just come like strolling on through shortly thereafter.
Yep. It's a double-edged sword. Either not shoot and the bull won't come, or shoot and the bull does come too.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Just to say that on that, the Forky, when I first got a bow, that's my first deer. I just wanted to, tag out, and it was the very last day of my tag. And I killed like a smaller buck. It wasn't like way small, but I killed a smaller buck. You could call it a Forky, whatever, but it was kind of like the one that you're referencing this year that I passed on, decent size for a Forky. But yeah, at the time I hadn't killed anything off of a bow, and I just wanted to, get the experience and all that kind of stuff as well, and just get meat in the freezer. And I'll be honest with you, I was on cloud nine to get meat in the freezer with a bow. I loved it. So
that was a good tasting buck too.
Yeah.
It was just a little guy too. We didn't even have to pack him on our backpack. we were just carrying with our hands.
Absolutely.
But it was good.
That's sweet. So when did you start bow hunting, Quinn? When did you get into it?
I think me and Dustin did at the same time. It was roughly 2014, 2015.
And you have been rifle hunting most of your lives then?
Well, define hunting really. My dad would take me out and I just hike with him. I don't know if that counts. I would, kind of trek along with him between ages 10 and 15 years old. And that's when I, started and got the love and the passion for hunting. And again, we were at that same drainage in the Uintas that our families hunted for years too. So we've grown accustomed and know that area pretty good. And, it's kind of tough to even try to go to a different place because we know where to go these days. And when you get familiar with an area, it's tough to go to another one and just try relearning the pattern, or like not the patterns, but the just the mountain range and areas like wallows and things where, elk love to be at. So, but yeah, I probably started at age 10 rifle hunting. And then, once archery was really getting into, getting pretty popular with the, some of the YouTube big, companies like Hush and born and raised, that I started kind of watching those, and that's where I got my really big interest in wanting to get a little bit closer and to these animals, so we can get 10 to 15 yards of a shot, or even, well, that's actually tough to do, but within 50 yards, really be up and close with these animals is definitely adrenaline rush for us.
Absolutely. Yeah, Quinn, I think it was 2015, maybe, yeah, probably 2015 when we started to do archery. Because
Yeah, that's where we got really into it.
we killed my bull in 2013, and it was a few years later, and you were like, nope, buy a bow. And I thought you were crazy. I didn't want to buy a bow. And then I was like, all right, let's do this. And then we went up in northern Utah and we started deer hunting. If you remember that, we would do, archery deer at first, and then we didn't have the multi-season tag, and then we would just do the rifle elk, if you remember that. So
Yep.
definitely good times.
Yeah. And we went to that same spot too multiple times, just did not have any success. Really, I mean, we saw mule deer, but we never would or even had the opportunity to draw back on them. I was like, we got to try a different spot. So, I mean, it was just not a large area for public land either. So we just, I don't know, we just stopped going there. But yeah, archery, definitely hard to get in a spot to where you can be successful. But I think the challenge of it is what excites me the most. I've always done hard things growing up as a kid. Like baseball is one of the hardest sports you could play. I don't care I don't care what everybody says there. Baseball is definitely one of the hardest sports. You have to hit a round baseball with a round bat at 90 miles an hour. That's no joke. So and archery is a similar way, where you just have to put in the time, the effort. You have to study habits of the animals, and you have to fine tune your bow. You have to test your equipment. There's just so much to it. There's a lot of time you have to dedicate to it. That's similar to sports. And I guess I don't know why, but I gravitate towards hard things, and I think once you actually do succeed, it's going to be it's going to mean a lot more to you as well.
Yeah.
Because honestly, when I shot that cow with Dustin, I mean, yes, I was excited, but I wasn't. I just know if I get an animal down with a bow, it's going to be 10 times the emotions. I guarantee it. So
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's so much more that goes into an archery hunt. And that's how I got into hunting. I've always been raised to love the outdoors, everything from boating to dirt biking to shooting guns. And I loved trap shooting with shotguns. Like, I love that growing up. And outside of that, I had never hunted until like my teenage years. Then I got into pheasant hunting with the company that I worked at. They would take us out pheasant hunting every fall. And that's what got me into bow hunting too, is a couple of the guys that I had worked with at this metal roofing company that I was doing outside of high school.
You can give Brandon's company a shout out. It's Raymond Keller Construction.
So I was working for Raven Keller Construction, top tier premium metal roofing company, and
Your
all the
boss
guys
was a little bit suspect though. Brandon.
yeah, yeah, and the guys I was working with were all getting these bows, and I was like, dude, that's like the baddest thing ever. Like, to be able to say you hiked them out and stalked or called in an elk and shot it with a bow and arrow. That was like the coolest thing ever. And so I had to get a bow. So I went to Wild Arrow, talked to the guys there, picked myself up a Matthews, and learned how to shoot. And I had never shot a bow before. My uncle Kevin, he had had a bow for a couple years previously, maybe more than that. And I had thought that was cool too. Like, that was another reason as well.
We'd go up at the cabin and he'd break that thing out and he'd start throwing these nice tight little groupings. And I was like, that's pretty cool.
yeah.
And so I knew I had to get into it. And so the people I was working with were getting new bows. And so I was like, all right, I've got to. Anyways, so I go down to Wild Arrow, get a Matthews V3, start shooting that thing. And I didn't know much at the time. And I got a hinge release for my first release, which is a terrible idea. So we
And
went back.
where were you at? You were at the shop, back at the shop, right?
Yeah, we went back out to the shop, but this is literally the first time I have shot my bow. We have the target set up in the back of the shop, and on the other side is
It's
the
train
city
tracks.
public. Yeah, it's train tracks, and then the city public's works building where they have like the snow trucks and the salt piles and everything. Anyways, we're in the back of the shop, and I'm shooting my bow. First time I pull it back, I accidentally engage the release, and it flings the arrow all the way over the train tracks, over into the public works building, and into a salt pile.
Nice.
And so I had to run over, climb the fence, and go get my arrow and come back. Luckily,
Man,
nothing bad happened, but
Yeah.
that's why
hopefully I
they
don't get in trouble for sharing that. Anyways, I didn't shoot my bow again until I was able to go get a new release. And it took me like a month to go get a new release, and eventually I got one that I was comfortable shooting, and then just loved it.
Where do you still have that hinge release?
I don't. I returned it.
Okay. See, I don't even remember even seeing that thing.
It was bad luck. It was like a training one, kind not train. I don't know the word for it. So it was a hinge release, but it was attached to a strap, so I couldn't
Yeah.
accidentally let it go, but I could
And then
still accidentally engage it.
Yeah, and then you got another one that you didn't like. You had like a Scots release, and it
Yeah, I
had
had
like a hair like hair
oh
trigger.
yeah.
I
You
I,
barely
I
like you
ended
didn't
up
even have to touch it and it would shoot.
yeah. I started using that one when he went and got. What did you get? Like the what are you shooting now? What is it?
The wise guy, the spot
Wise
hog,
guy. Yeah.
wise guy.
So I when I went and got mine, I'm like, well, let me try that one. I kind of like that. And so I threw that on, and I liked it. It was like a super hair release. The only thing that I didn't like about it for actually hunting is it didn't have like a little like hook, right? So like if you were out, you'd have to like swing down, open it, and then pull it closed, throw the clasp on the drawback.
The
So
one that I gave you.
yeah,
Yeah.
so that was that. After that, you were the one that told me, you're like, I don't know if you want that. Like if you're out hunting, you want to go and try and do something quick, like just being able to like hook it in and like draw back.
Instead of having to open it, put it in the D loop, and then close it, because it's like one
Yeah.
of those claw ones versus.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, but I liked it. It is. I mean, the nice thing is like you don't have to worry about like punching it or anything, because when you're ready, you like barely move your finger and it's just like gone.
Mhm.
I actually like that one a lot. I still have that somewhere. It's in my box, but yeah, that was
Yeah.
fun. Yeah.
Anyways, so that's how I got into it, and I've told myself I'm not gonna do any rifle hunt until I get an elk with my bow, because
Oh wow.
that's why I did it. So hopefully next year I can get me a nice big elk.
Yeah,
Been out of luck.
hopefully we can increase the learning curve for you, because I feel like me and Quinn, it took us a good 5+ years to like really like I'm serious. Like I finally started killing like bigger bucks and getting like even having a lot more opportunity, and then like every year we figured it out to the point where like me and Quinn will go into the same area and we know exactly what to do, and it's like we can read each other's mind. Remember,
Yeah.
Quinn, we'd go to the bottom of I'm not going to say the lake, but we'd go. I'd sit at the bottom, you'd go around up
It's the
north.
Great Salt Lake.
The
The Great Salt Lake, yeah.
I
It's out
remember ripping
everywhere.
off I called in some big bulls. I mean, huge 6 points there the year before, and I remember I was like, "This is what we're gonna do," and I ripped off a huge bugle, and immediately this huge bull was pissed, and it still gives me chills to this day. Quinn just got on the radio and he's like, "Let's go," and I knew we were gonna be in there all in the dark. I knew we were gonna be in there in the dark at that point, and I just remember at that point, like I started bugling them so much, like it was like I could almost feel what the bull was saying, because I would rip one off and like I was like, I know we're gonna come face to face with this bull again, and it would happen. It's happened year after year after year, and we couldn't quite seal the deal. But I mean, that was the funnest time of my life doing
Absolutely.
that, Quinn.
Yes.
I mean, what was it like? I have it on video. I think it was 30 minutes straight that we had him like coming down, raking, and he ended up hanging up that year and didn't come charging in. But almost sealed the deal. But anyways, my point is like we could take the learning curve off at least a little bit, especially with other people that you're networking with, and
Yeah. No,
take.
I'm excited. This is going to be a good year. I mean, I can shoot my bow really well, but getting on an elk, I haven't been able to do it yet.
Yeah,
So we'll get her done this year.
absolutely.
But
Okay,
yeah,
guys.
Ryan, I think it was Abe that said, it changes your life once you get like in that situation, and it almost does. It's like,
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
Quinn, it's surreal when that happens. It's wild.
Well,
Yeah.
I've
Yeah,
shared
well,
my,
I've just heard.
my story where, where I had that Jaxon and I were up with his buddy Cam Barnson, who I had coached for years, and it was like my first time out elk hunting, and they're down trying to find the pond that we've talked about that Abe had shared, and I heard that thing come in from behind me. So it wasn't it was a matter of, to me, it was just a matter of like just keep working, try and find an opening, but like having that thing come in that close, I mean 30 yards, I just didn't have any clean shot on vitals. And I had told myself, and I've said this 100 times, but like I'm not going to take a shot if I don't have a clean shot on vitals. Um, and he busted me and blew off. But like ever since then, it's just like I'm hooked. Like I can't wait for that. Like I know we're going to get Jaxon on a bull. Um, I have a feeling that all four of us in 2025 are going to have a successful hunt.
Absolutely.
I think with what all the studying that we're doing together and just the knowledge that we're sharing, like I told Jaxon, after going up with you guys for a couple of days, trying to get a buck for you guys, like I learned more being with you guys out there over the course of those couple of weeks than I had like all the stuff that I've done my own research, like seeing it put into practice and us like hiking up into position and feeling the thermals like actually change on you tells me like, okay, you've got to get into position way earlier than what I thought I had to get into position. And then you have to like, try and make yourself scarce and quiet. And there's a whole lot more just sitting around waiting than I thought, that there was going to be. So there's always things that it's just like anything in life. Like the more you put things into practice, you're going to shorten the learning curve. So I'm super grateful for you guys, and I'm glad we've got this partnership with what we're building here, and it's just all around. 2025 is going to be a killer year.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yep,
Yeah, we've got
it's
some
fun, just beginning.
exciting stuff.
Yep.
I'm excited. But yeah, the best research is definitely boots on the ground and actually going after it. But I can attest to that.
Any parting wisdom you guys would like to share with the audience before we wrap up here?
Yeah, next to elk hunting, maybe even just barely above it, pheasant hunting is one of the coolest experiences that you can really have because it's just fun. It's trap shooting, but for actually good birds. Because pheasant is good meat. Like I can eat that and enjoy it. Duck, duck belongs in the trash, but pheasant's really good. And so
There's some guys
who,
down in
whoever,
Louisiana that would argue that with you, Jaxon.
I know, so whoever wins our pheasant hunt, I hope they enjoy it as much as I do, because you get some good meat out of it, and it is just a blast.
Yeah.
I would say if you're new to hunting, keep after it. But I mean, this isn't a place for just new hunters. I mean, I think every level is here to network and build and learn from each other. But I think, I guess what I was going to say is like, I think this can be a huge platform where we can all connect and network greatly than we could even imagine. And I think there's a lot to learn here. And for any new hunters out there, keep after it, or whatever level you're at. There's a lot to learn out there, and I think Hunt Stealth is gonna be awesome for you. So.
Yeah. I would encourage anybody out there in our audience, if you have questions or topics or things that you want us to do some research and maybe do a podcast on, just hit us up, in the DMs on IG. Like, let us know what you're thinking, what you'd like help with. We'd love to be able to incorporate that into the future podcasts and find things that you guys would see, deem beneficial. So Appreciate you guys sticking around, listen to the podcast. It's been a lot of fun sitting down with everybody here. Again, you can, if you want to make a purchase, we've got some great swag. We'll be dropping some new stuff probably about the time that this thing hits the air. So visit huntstealth.com and grab your gear. That's one way that you can show support for the show. You can also, again, catch us on YouTube at Hunt Stealth, all the normal places that you listen to podcasts. If you're on the go, you can listen to it there as well. But just super grateful for the support that we've had. Super grateful to be working with Jaxon, Dustin, and Quinn. These guys are all passionate about hunting and wanting to help everybody in the hunting community be able to grow and get better. So until next time, guys, stay safe. Hey, I have a favor to ask. If you would and you enjoy this podcast, head on over to wherever you consume it and leave us a review. It's going to help us get this pumped out to more people that might be interested in hearing podcasts like this.